You're very welcome. Maureen and Michael, Jose, Karen, and let's see, and Priscilla. You got your name back, Priscilla. That's great. I really hope you're doing well. Hope everybody's doing well. So we do this work here to help our minds heal. And by healing our minds, we're also healing our body, because they're not two completely separate things. And the challenges that we face are immense. We face the challenge of not just losing different functions and abilities that we had all our lives, but also our capacity to responding to the new problems is also reduced, because they're not outside problems, they're inside problems. So it's really a double whammy getting chronic illness. Well, I think it's important to value that and to pay respect to it, and to recognize the challenge that we're taking on and facing. Welcome, Amy. Great to see you. Glad you're able to make it. So one of the tools we use is meditation, and that's a name for an activity. And well, let's not get too hung up on the word. Be more interested in the process that it's describing, because we can find that process in other places and in our lives. So in meditation, we're trying to improve our state of mind. We can say it simply like that. To have greater clarity, to have less confusion, to have less anxiety, to have better discipline, to be calmer. So I'm when I'm talking about mind, I'm talking about the emotions as well here, because emotions are really the force behind the mind. If we didn't have strong feelings about some certain beliefs, well, they'd just be beliefs which you might be indifferent to. So it's the feelings about our beliefs. It's our feelings about what's happening to us, which is part of the challenge. Talking about those feelings really directly uses the mind, and language is very much a mental thing. And if we want to go into the language of feelings, then we need something which is more literary, more creative, and which is transmitting an experience in its description, rather than trying to have a clear concept. So there's a need to focus on things that we can be clear about, or that we can be clearer about. Our very special focus is healing. How can we use this present moment, whether we think or feel that it's good or bad, in a way is secondary. to the primary thing, which is how can we use this moment? How can we live this moment in a way which supports, is part of our healing process, is a step in our healing process, no matter how small that step is. If that's a step we're taking in the present, then we are healing now. That's very simple. That's very straightforward. So we don't need very complex ideas. But we're human beings, so we're also complicated, and we have to deal with our complications as well. We can't just shut the door on them and say, no, you're too difficult. But by developing a simple approach, a simple approach, we're able to deal with our complications in a more effective way. In other words, we're healing. So having a simple approach is really key to the depth and power of the healing we're able to create in our lives. Meditation can be considered in two different ways. Well, in lots of different ways, but this is one pairing. One form which is entirely open, and I've talked about it quite a few times, I think. I think we've done a meditation on entering into a deeper state of openness. And no, actually, I didn't call it a deeper or state, I don't think, but that's what we were doing. And just, I think it was more about resting, and as we rest and we relax, we're not as defensive or aggressive. Our stress has gone down. So when our stress is down and we're resting, we're naturally in a more open state. It's not a complex thing. It's just a very natural thing. And if we just continue to go into that open state and embrace the open state more and more, and we're just open to whatever we're experiencing in the present, and we're just accepting it as it is in the present. We have this openness to everything. And sometimes our experience really isn't like that as well. And sometimes our experience is more being caught up with the complicatedness of our existence. And we're not experiencing this vast openness, which in the East they often call emptiness. I prefer openness, actually. So we need a slightly different approach or approaches to deal with our complicated stuff, our complex stuff. But the more we have the simple approach, which is given by the example of accepting, being open to everything and accepting it as it is, which doesn't mean agreeing with it or disagreeing with it, but accepting what's happening, accepting our viewpoints, accepting our feelings, and accepting, just being open, accepting. And when you've opened and accepted enough, well, that's very comfortable space. That's the state of peace. So that's a really powerful thing to bring to our complicated existence. And when we really bring it, complicated existence might still technically be as complicated. Nothing may have changed in that sense. But when we bring that, you know, it's both, for me, it's both transcendental peace, it's because it's beyond anything, and it's also practical peace because I've accepted everything, you know, physically, emotionally, and so on. So it's an embodied peace as well. It's, for me, it's both. So when that connects with whatever complicated aspect is overwhelming us, it can't actually overwhelm the peace because the peace doesn't have any argument with it. And so that energy of conflict, it quietens down because in the bigger scheme, there isn't any conflict. And that's what we're doing. We're bringing the bigger reality into our smaller, painful reality. This is also why we explored it quite a bit when we were doing the 12 steps, and you know, using the description of reality, you know, of the totality of reality as God, as a higher reality, as a greater reality. And there's lots and lots of different words that we can use, but we're not actually interested in studying the finesse of different religious and spiritual interpretations of these words, right? Because you can just get lost in that forever. It can be really interesting, but that's not what we're here for. We're taking the shortcut. We're just going to bypass all that because it's something that you can get lost in. Whereas if we connect with this source of peace, which is just through being aware of our reality and accepting it and repeating that, that's the discipline. And the pre-peace, which was always there, in fact, but we were always in conflict with reality, so we couldn't experience the peace. And the peace is natural. It's part of the whole reality, the higher reality. And we have access to that because it's part of us, or we're part of it. Earlier today, my version of this, when I was doing healing meditation, the situation that's going on where some people are going out of their way to cause me lots of problems. It's not the first time. Am I even surprised at this stage? I don't know. Anyway, something actually really horrendous. And it's not the first time. But as my strength of peace has my practice, my discipline on the path to discover peace, as that discipline gets stronger, my capacity of dealing with difficulties gets better. So as I sat in the healing meditation position, which is very comfortable for me, no stress there at all, just try and stay awake, that's it. And so it was on my mind quite a bit, what was going on. It's atrocious. I'll say it sometime, but not now. And my mind was rightly very concerned. It was very natural to be agitated by, what's happening. And rightly, this is something that requires attention. It does. But is it possible to focus on this situation without getting caught up in the emotional reactions? Is it possible to pay attention to this situation with consciousness, with peacefulness? And so every time I did that, the heat, the situation is still there, hasn't changed, but the heat of it, the intensity, the feeling of this is, of this being another problem I have to deal with. And I do kind of have to deal with it all right, that's true. But it's how I deal with it. If I deal with it with peace inside me, or do I deal with it with conflict inside me? So these are two hugely different approaches. And of course, we can't just, jump from one to the other, although we kind of do as well. Once we start to feel a bit of peace at times, and that becomes part of our discipline, our practice, then we start to feel it more often. But so we feel it, and then we jump back into a more adverse state of mind, whatever that is. And then we're practicing, and hang on. Here's a moment of peace for no particular reason at all, maybe. And so that just takes practice. So it's not about solving the complicated stuff. You can't solve all of that in advance to then discover the peace. You really have the possibility of discovering the peace here in this present moment with all the difficulties and problems that we have. It doesn't dismiss our emotions, doesn't dismiss our concerns, our need to do, doesn't dismiss anything. It's the peace that comes because we accept the reality as it is in this moment. And when we are in the discipline of accepting it, we're automatically also changing it. We're changing our relationship with it. We're changing ourselves. And so this is one of the great, what's the word for it? Dilemmas. No, it's not really, is it a dilemma? No, it's not quite a dilemma. That it's like a contradiction, maybe, anyway, where in the process of accepting, we're in a way giving up the energy of trying to change. We're accepting, if you're accepting something, you're not trying to change it. Yeah, okay, this is it. You're not trying to change it. And by doing that, we change. The dilemma, contradiction, So this is the real magical power that it talks about in the second part of the Shambhala, the story of the hero. I can't, my brain is gone. Really, where's it? What's happened? I don't know. Shambhala by Trungpa. what I find, really useful for when I'm just, my mind is too much, or emotions are too much of a mess, and it's really distraught, and the waters are really stormy, and you're being thrown around on a broken raft. Try not to go down. And just to say, right now, I'm doing the best I can. I forgive myself for everything that I wasn't able to do, that I can't do now, or that I can't do in the future. I forgive myself. And that's another approach to bringing in peace. I suppose if we looked at it, we would find that acceptance and forgiveness overlap, that they share some meaning. So let's really try and practice some of that. I'm just going to ask you to not do anything. Be present. Notice yourself being aware inside yourself. And for a few minutes, we're going to take a healing journey within your own mind. In a way, we kind of share a sort of magic link, because whilst we're all individuals in our own bodies in different parts of the world, we're also linked together as well, because we are doing the exercise together. And recognizing that we're doing this together can really support us. We can look to our fellow apprentice healers for the strength that they practice in their lives, for the presence of their consciousness in this moment. So although we're each in our own mind, we're also together. And I'd like to ask you to step inside the room of imagination. the chamber of imagination, where it is possible to imagine anything. We may shape the direction of imagination. We're going to go through a series of doors, eventually to come back to the place where we started. So each door leads to a different room or space. Doesn't really have to be a room, but it could be. You're free to float a couple of feet off the ground. Just float through. The doors may open for you completely automatically. You have the freedom to do that. Or may you want to approach it in a different way. You may want to approach it in a wheelchair, being pushed by somebody. You may approach the door and struggle to open the door. This is the first room, first space. How you move through it. As you imagine yourself moving through it. And simply accept that this is how you're moving through the space. Floating or running or walking or driving or a wheelchair, any way you imagine. Could be chaotic, could be a mixture of different ways. There is no right result. And in this journey, a moment comes when the door opens and you enter the next space. Perhaps you have a strong or intense emotion, or strong thoughts or sensations in your body. You may have something which frequently dominates you. So in this space, I'm going to recognize that. And simply recognize that it is, in the moment, at times, part of our existence, part of existence. So we don't need to do anything about it. It's part of existence. We're part of existence. We may choose to pass through it and feel it, or maybe very intense and threatening. You feel the need to pass around it. And in this journey, you have the option to leave it behind for now. So whether we're present and aware, facing this intense emotion and thought, or whether we're present and aware that we're avoiding it, we take some moments to not rush. We take some moments simply to accept the experience. We move towards a third door. It opens. In this space, we're faced with a scene of an endless number of doors, an endless number of choices. And we don't know how to make the right one. It may be a challenge we hadn't expected. We're in a situation in which it's impossible to know what to choose. No matter how much we want, we don't know. It's natural to feel at a loss faced with this. And we may choose to accept the loss we can't control. As we accept how we feel in this moment, we approach the actual fourth door. It's available to us because we accepted our reality. This was the right choice. As we enter the next door, next space, we're in front of a big mirror. But it's not quite normal. As we look into it, sometimes we see our face, ourself. Then in other moments, we only see a light reflected in our image. And then we see ourselves again. And then we see a light as our image in the mirror. A light breaking out of the mirror. We see ourselves again. And we see the light coming from the mirror. We may accept that we are more than our body, emotions, and mind. We are the essence of the universe itself. We may find ourselves transfixed by the light shining out of our image in the mirror. It's like nothing else. Our mind, our emotions, our body can't process it, but our mind, body, and emotions are open, and that's enough. That's enough to let the light in. As we let that light in, enriching ourselves, enriching our feelings, enriching our mind, we step through our own reflection in the mirror. This is home, our true home. And as we return to our ordinary consciousness, we leave the window of our soul open to let that light continue flowing in. We can access it anytime we want.